Mojave, plants and animals of the Creosote bush flats. What does this place look like to you? It's the Mojave Desert. Does it look like everything is dead? The sunrises and sunsets here are beautiful. And as you can tell by the power poles, people live out here, as I did for 6 months. Humans may live out here, but we're not the most common species. The most prominent member of the ecosystem is the creosote bush. This plant may look ugly, but that's when it's surviving a drought. And it is very, very good at surviving droughts. It bides its time and waits for rain. When it gets water, as it occasionally does, I think it's quite a beautiful plant. The leaves are small and waxy. The flowers are abundant and yellow. It forms fuzzy little white seed pods. The creosote bush isn't just beautiful. It's the center of this whole ecosystem. Who do we see peeking out of this creosote bush? It's the desert iguana, Dipsosaurus dorsalis. It eats the flowers and leaves, and once in a while a bug. I fed one broccoli and it almost ate out of my hand. That white color is pretty, but it contrasts with the dark green of the creosote bush. They're really meant to blend into the sand. And boy, that sand gets hot. The desert iguana likes to come out during the hottest parts of the day. We saw this one on the first day of April, when the weather really starts getting hot. The desert iguana gets to be over a foot long, so it's a medium-sized lizard. It's definitely an animal of the desert. It probably uses the heat to escape from predators. It stays out even up to 115 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not just adults, there are lots of babies running around too. They get territorial, but mostly they're very tolerant of each other and of me. They stay in their burrows until it gets hot each day and go to bed well before it gets dark. Not just reptiles live out here, it's also the Mojave ground squirrel. The creosote bush is their food too. Everywhere they go, they run, except when they're in the bush. There's also the antelope squirrel. It looks like a chipmunk, but the stripes don't reach its head. Its tail flicks constantly. It's always on the lookout for seeds and maybe an occasional bug. The squirrels live in burrows, but who's the best digger of them all? It's this little guy with the big tuft on the end of its tail. The kangaroo rat digs lots of burrows. Look at those big hoppy feet. That's why it's called a kangaroo rat. They can reportedly jump up to 9 feet, and I can tell you they are fast. It uses those big back legs for hopping, and its little hands are used to shovel food into its great big cheek pouches. It eats seeds, creosote seeds, and it uses those cheek pouches to transport the seeds into the storage areas of its burrow. The most amazing thing is that some kangaroo rats get all the moisture they need from the seeds they eat, and they can go an entire lifetime without drinking at all. This one was trained to come out of his burrow by singing a song. The iguana isn't the only lizard out here. Can you guess why this guy's called a whiptail? Look at the body length compared to the length of its tail. The tiger whiptail is always on the lookout for bugs. This lizard looks like a baby iguana, but look at its underside. Iguanas don't have that coloring. Now look at its tail. Notice the stripes. That's probably why it's called a zebra tail. It has a colorful underbelly for mating, and it runs on 2 legs when it's really trying to get away. It's a lot more skittish than the iguanas. One of the most famous animals of the desert. The roadrunner really gets around. This one went to the top of a tree and began calling out like a dove. The camel spider is big, but it's not actually a spider. It's an arachnid called a solifuge. Some can get 5 inches long, but this one was maybe an inch. These gray leaves, long thorns, and pretty purple flowers belong to the Krameria, or ratany. Instead of producing nectar, these flowers produce an oil which a special bee, Centris rhodopus, feeds to its larvae. Creosote bushes are incredibly efficient at removing water from the soil. When it does rain, each plant extracts all the water from the soil and other plants get a foothold. That's why each plant looks so evenly spaced. So if creosote bushes are so good at keeping neighbors away, how does the ratany survive? First of all, ratany is a very drought-tolerant plant. Second, like the creosote bush, when there's no water, it loses its leaves and goes into a dormant state. Actually, ratany is a parasite. When it's just getting started, it sends out roots to find a creosote bush and starts stealing water and other nutrients. I hope next time you go to Las Vegas and drive through what appears to be an empty desert, you think about all the special plant and animal life that lives here. There's more than just this, and perhaps I'll cover it during a future presentation.